It's always interesting when you begin setting the stage for something. It's one thing to say that all are welcomed, and it's another to say that I had you in mind. So as you listen today, I'm speaking to Black people because I had you in mind. And if you begin to shift in your chair and you say, why did you say that? Because so often we are talked at, we are talked about, and very rarely are we talked to. So I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you deeper than the melanin that you have, because there was once upon a time that your skin weighed more than gold. Your labor was worth more than gold. Some of you now travail, and you know that that labor has a price. And so I want you to remember your value. I want you to remember why. And I don't want you to walk away with that same look that you had when you sat down today. So many times people have asked me, are you a man or a woman? I honestly feel like folks ask you that because they need to be able to assign a level of respect to you. How much space do you get to take up? How many times do you need to step back? So I'm constantly asked in spaces, what are you? Now, I heard a brilliant sociologist say that when they're in rooms, they constantly are on. A question was asked of them, as the only woman in that space, how do you feel about that? She laughed, that laugh that only Black people know. Really? And she said, I've never been the only woman in a room. The woman who posed the question was absolutely baffled. She said, I've never been the only woman in a room because I don't have that luxury. I've always been the only Black person in a room. And for me, a light bulb went off. That my personhood absolutely means nothing. Because when I walk into a space, before you qualify me, you quantify my Blackness. I go back to why that is so ingrained. Enslavement is its name. Understand we were never slaves, because that actually absolves the person who came and took us. It absolves them from knowing that I had a family, a language, a God, before they ever put a shackle on my neck. I descended not from those who jumped into the water, but from those who stayed on the ship. So when I stand before you, I stand before you with the fury that only comes when somebody has taken everything from you and death is no longer a fear. That's where I come from, and that's what I draw from. Because before I enter a room, my Blackness meets you. They always ask you to blend in. That's what they want. How do you blend? How is your personhood measured? But remember, I descended from people that you took their personhood from. It was taken from them when you put those shackles on their necks, when you clasped their feet. That was taken from them, so I can't blend. I don't blend. There is a lyricist named Heavy D that says, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. That's the type of girl I need down on my team. It wasn't just talking about the melanin in her skin or the beauty that she possessed. It was telling her, I want you to have the audacity, the unmitigated gall to be unapologetic in who you are. That's where I descend, and that's where I draw my power. So many times when I'm sitting in rooms with Black folks, I sometimes have to step back and say, I don't have a right to name who I am. because my people are still fighting to be known as a man. In the 60s, we held signs that said, I am a man. Treat me as such. But what they were really screaming is, I'm human. See me as such. So when I sit in rooms that are black, designated, my queerness has to stay out the door because I can't intrude on what is needed. I don't want to silence my people anymore, so my queer identity stays, my trans identity stays at the door. But where I can go, when I walk into those rooms and my queer and trans identity are encapsulated, my blackness then has to stay at the door. So I choose how I show up. I choose what battle I fight. And even though Heavy D told me not to blend, I do. So I had to go back home. I had to go back to what I know. I had to find, before enslavement, who I was. And I went home to these people called the Gala people of the Sea Islands of South Carolina, of Georgia, North Carolina. Those people who were taken from Sierra Leone, Senegal, Gambia, Madagascar, and put on an island and made to work. You see, where I come from, they don't use she or he when they talk about somebody. They say, he say that, him do that, him say he. Why now? I come from folks that they don't say they. They say, boy ain't never been gendered to us. I come from those people, so I had to go back home and hear what I needed to hear. That Gullah speak, that land that is soaked in tears, that land that is soaked in blood, that land that is soaked in resistance. I had to go home to find out who I am. I had to go back and find out my mother tongue, that tongue that they took from me because they needed for me to speak standard English when I spoke to them. I don't claim that tongue. It's like claiming borrowed clothes. It ain't mine. And I refuse to keep wearing somebody else's garment. I had to go back home to my culture because, again, enslavement took away my ability to know certain things about my culture. That my culture always had trans identity. This ain't new. That my culture always respected non-binary entities. This ain't new. But they told me that this was a new thing. And therefore, when I walked into certain spaces, I didn't think all of me could be. But you forget, blackness is the encompassment of all. So when I stand whole, because home always been black. It's always been rich in that. It's always been loved. Always. And I forgot it. And so I reclaim it. And I stand on it. I intersect in my blackness. And I have always been. So when they ask, are you a man or a woman? I can confidently say, I'm black. Because blackness is who I am. It is what I represent. It is the fire that you hear. It is the resiliency that you want. Oppression ain't never been mine, and I don't claim it no more. So I look to each and every one of you who stand with me. Who are you? Who do you stand with? Do you see me as whole? Do you accept what I bring to the table? Because, dear hearts, you gotta go home. Home ain't never had no walls. Home ain't never had no chair. Home always been in here. Because when they took you away, they thought they took something from you, but you took it with you. And I ask you to stand on it. I speak to you. I speak into you. I dare you. Come home, child. Come home. Come home where you're safe. Come home where you're accepted. Come home to your blackness. Asheo.